tide of aging wears away at the foundation of perception and memory. Does a changing mind foreshadow the decline of our linguistic abilities? As it turns out, language, like a well-built sandcastle, can display surprising resilience in the face of cognitive disruption. The complete story of language change in adulthood is one of decline, adaptation, resilience, and even enhancement. These seemingly contradictory outcomes are easier to understand if we conceptualize language not as a unitary phenomenon, but as a set of interacting components. Viewed broadly, language consists of 4 major domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Keep in mind that each domain is part of one integrated, multi-component system. The underdevelopment of one domain for any individual does not mean that he or she lacks linguistic ability. For example, throughout the world, many people never learn to read or write, but we wouldn't characterize those individuals as not having language. In fact, on the evolutionary timescale, the entire human species was illiterate until relatively recently. In addition, blind and low-vision individuals experience the written word, but do so through other senses like touch and hearing. Likewise, sign languages are as expressive and as rich as any spoken language. Researchers who explore the relation between language and aging do so using a variety of perspectives. In an admittedly simplistic way, we can subdivide the principal approaches into 4 broad perspectives: developmental, physiological, social, and cognitive. Obviously, these ways of studying language are not mutually exclusive, and many topics that we discuss draw on the contributions of all 4. From a developmental perspective, researchers focus on how the 4 domains are acquired and change over time. For example, when we are born, we are predisposed to identify the sounds of our native language and go on to master the rudiments of speaking in our 2nd year. Reading and writing formally begin with preschool and kindergarten, with reading largely mastered by middle school and writing in high school. Of course, few would claim that they ever totally master writing. From a physiological perspective, research on language and the brain suggests that the 4 domains are capable of functioning somewhat independently. This is perhaps most apparent when we consider the effects of brain injury. The disruptions caused by stroke or head injury can be surprisingly selective. A person who suffers a stroke might lose the ability to read, for example, but may have little or no impairment in the ability to speak and understand language, and even the ability to write may be preserved. From a social perspective, researchers take into account the roles of society and culture to study language use. For example, they look at the effects of stereotypes on aging and the social consequences of ageism. These researchers also study the ways in which the demographics of aging are changing societies around the world. From a cognitive perspective, researchers may zero in on specific constituent processes of language, such as word finding. At the other end of the cognitive spectrum, researchers also explore how the domains operate more broadly, such as in writing about trauma. Because we are cognitive scientists, we draw primarily on research from this field. In the early chapters, we focus on how aging affects the 4 domains of language. We begin by discussing some of the methodological issues that confront researchers who study aging across the lifespan. We then consider some of the cognitive processes that underlie language ability. It's interesting to note that the number 1 fear of people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond is the loss of memory. For this reason, we explore memory's role in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. For example, is the word-finding difficulty that many older adults complain about an issue of memory, language,